Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are now going live, hopefully, on Facebook. Facebook has been killing us every single week because the bandwidth has not been strong enough for the impact that we are having as women on the networks right now. Welcome to the She Means Business Scotland show. We are recording this live on Zoom, so you feel free to welcome us. All the information is in the Facebook Live, in Facebook group She Means Business Scotland. So come and join us on the Facebook Live or come and join us in the Zoom as well. So today we have some fantastic guests for you. We have got, oh my God, I'm so excited about this because it's three women who have got some incredible stories to tell and who are doing some incredibly transformative business as well. First up, we're going to be listening to Hilary Phillips, who's going to be talking about the power of storytelling and how it can transform your business. Then we're going to be talking to the marvelous Mel Harris, who's going to, as some of you know, she's the big Tantra woman in Scotland. She's going to be talking about the three main blockages in women's bodies. And for those of you who've been with us since the beginning, yes, Mel Harris did have a session at the very, very beginning, but because she was squeezed into a kind of 3-minute shout out at the end, I promised I'd bring her back later on in the series, so she's back with us today. And then finally, we've got the wonderful Margaret G. Walsh, who's going to be talking about how Scotland can act as an honest broker in outer space disputes. Yes, indeed. So a powerhouse of fantastic women who we've got today in the studio, virtual studio, obviously. For the She Means Business show. So let me tell you a little bit about the show before we get in. I formally introduce the guests. So my name is Finn Wycherley. I run a digital marketing agency called Supersize Media based in Edinburgh, servicing clients in Australia, America, and the UK generally. And I've been teaching social media for years and years and years. And now I'm working with Facebook and Enterprise Nation to make sure that women across Scotland have got all the tools that they need to be able to think about starting up in business or to develop their business. So Facebook has developed this She Means Business program to go all around Scotland. But unfortunately, because of the corona crisis, we've put everything online, which means that every single week we invite 3 inspirational women to come and talk to us. And then on the 4th week, we've got some social media training as well. So this is done in collaboration with Enterprise Nation, which is a fantastic resource if you want to check them out online. They've got everything from how to find out about the coronavirus loans that are available, for example. The government has just announced the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, and that launches on the 13th of May, and they've got a brand new guide that was launched this morning on how to apply for that. They've also got a fantastic guide on how to apply for the bounce back scheme. They had something like 67,000 businesses applying for it within 24 hours. So they're giving you all the tips and tricks on how to make sure you're getting your application form gets processed as well. So you can see that Enterprise Nation is doing incredible things for small businesses across the UK, but we are here just in Scotland, servicing not just the people in Scotland, but definitely the women who are doing incredible things who are based in Scotland as well, although our audience is worldwide. So that's a little bit about what we do. Now let's find out about our audience, our speakers today. Hilary, welcome to the show, the She Means Business show. It's lovely to have you here. Tell me, what is the thing about copywriting that inspired you to actually develop this as a business?
Lovely to be here, Finn. Thank you very much for inviting me on and giving the opportunity just to share a little bit about my business and about my life. So copywriting has been the kind of core of what I've been doing right since my 20s. Okay, so I've started counting how I do work in business, maybe more in decades than in years. But I've worked for myself since I was in my 20s, and writing's been right at the heart of that all the way through. So I think even as a teenager, probably as a child, I was interested in reading and writing, and therefore that sort of naturally became something that I focused on initially. But I think in recent years, I've kind of shifted away from being interested primarily in clarity. That's always been right at the heart of what I've been interested in, helping organisations to write really clearly, writing clearly myself. So that's kind of there. But beginning to shift away from simply focusing on clarity to focusing more on storytelling. So that's really kind of it's that word story that is getting me excited from a business perspective right at the moment.
Amazing. And when you were wee, did you ever imagine that you would be running your own business?
No, I lived in a house full of teachers. So my mum was an English teacher. My dad was the head teacher of a secondary school, physics background. And I think all the way through my my own education, I imagined that I would be a teacher. I obviously didn't have very much imagination. And then I went off to uni, I studied English. And actually at some point or another during that career, I suddenly kind of realised that if I stepped into education at that point, I would never have done anything else. So in reality, yes, it was kind of coming to the end of my student days, thinking, well, what is it I'm going to do at that point? And got involved in working in academic admin, actually. So I was still connected with academia at that point, but began to explore stuff around marketing, and that was really what led me within a few years, because obviously started my own business in my 20s. So at that point got the opportunity to explore what did it mean to start your own business, and worked for myself ever since. Yeah.
And what kind of reaction did you get when when you told people you were going to set up in business? Were people supportive or were they appalled?
I think generally probably supportive. The interesting thing for me is the role that I had at the moment that I set up the business way back then. Actually, I felt I didn't have enough commercial experience, so I went off to work for a different organisation to sort of develop the marketing experience that I was getting. I was there for about 6 months and they made me redundant. So actually I had the push at that moment in time to just launch into that self-employed status. So a little bit of an external shove in that direction. Yeah.
Nice. And so what do you find are the main kind of copywriting mistakes that businesses do when they're getting on with their writing for their business?
Interesting question. So there's lots and lots of those, but I think the one I would maybe focus on is not concentrating on who they're writing for. So I think if you think about audience, then you're not going to go terribly far wrong. I have 2 key questions that I share with folk in training, but also try and apply to my own writing, and they're very, very simple questions. But what's the purpose of your piece of writing? Why are you doing it? What is it actually for? So that's one of the key questions. And then the other one is simply, who are you actually writing it for? And I think if you kind of stick with those 2 things, then you don't go too far wrong. But actually that audience thing does lead you quite quickly into exploring the ideas around story and the value of story. And I think as a copywriter, I've always tended to focus on other people's stories. So who are the kind of key people that, what are the most important stories that you can tell about your organization or about the people that you connect with? And again, I think shifting away, helping organizations to shift away from telling their own story to actually telling the story of the people that they're helping. To me, that's kind of one of the key things that makes a massive big difference. So in the autumn, I did a day with a group of people who were meeting for their annual conference. So organisations in Scotland who are all involved in making the planet a greener place, so all to do with sharing resources, using our resources better, and one of the interesting things about that day was that there was a focus on storytelling already. I was there to do a seminar about storytelling. So of course, during the day, I was sitting, listening to each organisation talking about themselves, talking about the things that they did, and just kind of noticing how they told their stories. And it's really, really powerful. I think the people who communicated most effectively were the people who either told a very moving story about somebody whose life they had changed, okay, or they were people who shared their own journey about why they were doing the things that they were doing and what it was that had motivated to do that. There's one particular story from that day that I remember, which is the director of a charity getting up and telling the story of taking some aid out to Eastern Europe, probably 20, 30 years ago, and saying as he came back from that journey, he knew that his life was never going to be the same again. So it's identifying those moments in your own story and being able to share them, or identifying the moments in your organization's story. I think that's one of the things that I find really interesting at the moment.
Yeah, because it makes the kind of facts and the products come alive, really, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing saying, absolutely, okay, we're introducing Hilary Phillips. She's a fantastic copywriter. She's going to tell you about the power of storytelling. But actually, let's step back a little bit and find a little bit about what motivates Hilary, what made her get into that. You know, it's finding out the why behind everything, because that's the stuff that people remember. It's when you make that connection before you actually go into the kind of selling or influencing process.
And those moments, I think those moments can be they can be external or they can be internal. So there's an external moment that I think impacted our life as a family and business. And bizarrely, that moment would be 9/11. Because at that moment, my husband was sitting in a boardroom meeting, company that he was involved in, financial IT development, and expecting to sell his business. Okay, and because of that moment, actually that didn't happen, and he took a bit of a kind of career change. Came into, we had a third baby, kind of a little bit late, just after that, and Mark was very much taken up with the notion of getting more involved in family life. So he came in to join the business, and actually at that point, what I was doing as a kind of part-time add-on became what we were living on, and he's worked in our business, what then became our business ever since then. So there's an external moment that impacted on our lives, and again, because of that, we ended up being foster carers. So the kind of focus on family and looking after children kind of grew out of that. So really, what I do from a business perspective has allowed us to sustain that kind of caring for our own 3 children and then 12 other small people that we've looked after over the years.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so going back to the storytelling part, I mean, for social media, for example, obviously I've been in social media forever, and the one thing that a lot of businesses weren't able to realize at the beginning was that, you know, when they went to the traditional advertising agencies to get them to help with their social media, the problem was that the advertising agencies were just basically graphic design agencies almost. And so they didn't know how to develop all the kind of narrative themes that you need to keep the story alive on social media, because social media is a hungry beast. You know, you have to feed it on a regular basis with impactful content that's going to be engaging and going to build a relationship with your prospects who might buy with you, you know, in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of years, you know. So ultimately you have to keep feeding that beast. And if you just keep posting, publishing all kinds of random stuff that nobody's engaging with because there's no narrative behind it, there's no why behind it, there's no empathic element that makes it social, then it's basically going to die on its feet. And it's what I would call social media publishing, not social media marketing, which is the difference whereby you're actually getting people to change behavior because of the story that you've told them.
There's a phrase in my mind. There's a chap I'm working with at the moment whose company is called Be More Human. And actually, I think that's one of the things that storytelling does for us, isn't it? It helps us to be more human. So I think the business world for a long time was very kind of driven by PowerPoint presentations and statistics and these kinds of things. And actually, you know, in marketing, I think we've probably always known the power of a story, even if we haven't been quite sure about how to use that in social settings or whatever. But the power of a story is for definite core marketing, but it's also really, really significant in leadership development and the success of businesses. So one of the things that I'm delighted to be doing right at the moment is, again, this is, you know, an external moment of coronavirus lockdown influencing all of our lives and changing what we do. I was coming to the end of a project and just kind of wondering basically how coronavirus is going to affect us in the business and what's next, but actually have been able to step in to work with an organisation called YouthLink Scotland, who are an agency that kind of sit between Scottish Government and a lot of youth organisations in Scotland. So they're really influencing youth work in Scotland at the moment, and particularly around digital youth work. So of course digital youth work was a kind of little special interest subject for a few people until 6 weeks ago, and now it is actually the only way that most youth workers can actually connect with their young people. So how are we going to tell the story of that? That is actually what's firing my imagination right at the moment, to try and use storytelling to actually understand what's been happening in that sector over the last 6 weeks, and to use it as a power for good for the future.
Amazing, amazing. And have you been affected adversely in any way, you know, from a business perspective or even from your family perspective by the whole crisis that's been going on at the moment?
Well, inevitably, like many other people, I now have a 9-year-old at home rather than at school during the kind of working week. I have an 18-year-old who's missed the very end of his school career and is currently a little bit fearful about what the next steps are going to look like. Is he going to be able to start uni in the autumn? So there is so certainly from a family perspective, yes, it's been a very significant thing for us. I over the last 20 years, but maybe particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, I've had a number of short-term projects, and it is always just, I think, in a business world, it's about trusting that the next right thing will come along. And actually, I think working with YouthLink at the moment has been the next right thing for me. So yes, it's completely changed how we do stuff. I deliver face-to-face training as one of the kind of key elements in my my role. So as a copywriter, sharing that with other people became very important to me about 10, 12 years ago. So face-to-face training at the moment is obviously moved online, and that's a very different setting, different environment. So getting to grips with how to inspire people, how to engage them, how to understand what they are thinking and feeling in a training situation online is all really different.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're a fellow trainer with the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce as well. Have you done any training with them? Because they've got some full day events coming up as well.
So I've got a funny story to tell there actually. And the thing that I've done with them just recently was a short sort of one hour seminar, and just a free thing that we offer to people called Lead with a Story. But I am hoping to do some other training around that, and I do have a day coming up. But the interesting thing about the Lead with a Story seminar is that the name of that seminar is inspired by a book called Lead with a Story by a chap called Paul Smith. So when I jumped on to the call a couple of weeks back to run this bit of training, I had seen the list of who was coming, but no bells had rung. But Paul Smith, the author of the book whose title I was using, jumped onto the call from Ohio in the States. So we'd obviously been Googling, and there in a nutshell is the power of Facebook. So
Wow.
or of Google, or of the internet for us. So I'm used to delivering training here in Edinburgh to people who maybe live in Edinburgh or perhaps have travelled from Wales or the north of Scotland, or I think I've once had somebody from Denmark on a course in Edinburgh, but generally speaking it's local folk. On that small call with half a dozen people. I had this chap from the States, and I had somebody from Italy. So it is just really interesting how what we do. Coronavirus is global; it's a global issue, and how we respond to it is a global response as well.
I know, it's forcing us all to get our global heads on a bit more, isn't it? Well, it's been fascinating talking to you, Hilary. Thank you so much for giving us all the great insights into injecting good stories into your business narrative. Where can people go to find out more about you, or to find out more about your services?
Okay, so if you Google for Cygnus Extra, okay, so Cygnus as in the swan, that's been our company name for a long time. My husband's an enthusiastic astronomer, so we spend time looking up at the stars, and that's the inspiration for our business name, but Cygnus the Swan. But yes, if you, I'm fairly confident if you Google Hilary Phillips and copywriting, that you'll find me that way as well. You'll find me on LinkedIn, and you'll find me on Facebook. So we'd be delighted to chat. And yeah, my customers over the years include small businesses and a lot of social enterprises, public sector, commercial organisations of all sorts. So I'd be delighted to talk to you. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much, Hilary.
Thank you
so much and do stay around as well, because if you feel urged to jump in on and ask some probing questions for Margaret or Mel as we go through it, please jump in. Not a problem at all. Okay, Mel, let's unmute your mic and let's hear from you. How are you doing there today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, thank you, Finn.
So tell us, for those who've never heard of the infamous Mel, tell us a little bit about who you are and what do you do?
Okay, well, like many of the lovely ladies that appear on your show, I've had a journey. And the journey led me to where I am now with Tantrum. So I started off as a scientist, and I was studying medical microbiology, so all relevant to the virus and understanding virology. And from there, I leapt into marketing, and for a good sort of 6 to 10 years, I was doing international marketing for various companies and organizations, business development, mainly for medium-sized businesses. So I kind of ended up being a jack of all trades in that area. And then I was an international trainer for young people's international leadership organization for many years as well, about 15 years. And that led me into setting up my own consultancy and leadership and behavioral change, working with teams, working with sales and marketing, but from the behavioral aspect, you know, so you go in and change the actual behavioral way and paradigms of how people were looking at things to approach things. And then because the behavior is changing, actually the sales start to come very naturally. There's no point in teaching the sales techniques to somebody who hasn't got the behavior or the attitude that's required. So the same thing with leadership and team building. And in that journey, my whole life has kind of been understanding why we do what we do, and I guess the reason for being here. You know, what's it all about, living this life and being here, and understanding the relationships of people at different levels. I had a particularly difficult journey in my youth with my mother, no fault of her own, just she's a very strong character, and that was the journey of being the eldest child, which is a story for many people in that. So that kind of drove me to how I could build a better relationship with her. And I was always very aware that the world is not quite as we see it. So I had the ability to perceive things that other people didn't perceive as a child. And I had a very natural connection with animals and my ability to kind of heal and work with them. I actually wanted to be a vet rather than going into the biological sciences. And I was told at a young age that this was an overactive imagination. And so you kind of get into the business world and the working world and you let go of all of that. But I was revisited by beginning to sense and perceive things again in my later years, in my early 30s, it came back. And in that journey and the quest for understanding why we're all here, I guess it was very much a spiritual drive, however people want to qualify spirituality. For me, spirituality is understanding that all things are connected. Everything that we do is interconnected. We live in a very, very complex matrix with very, very subtle interplays of us, whether that's us as a microcosm of the macrocosm of the universe. I'm sure that ties into Margaret coming in later. Or whether that kind of ties into, you know, the cells and atoms that make up our being very fundamental building blocks, and we're the macrocosm of their microcosm, if you like. Okay. So, so that kind of drove me to wanting to understand why and how the universe works, and that's what spirituality kind of meant to me. What is this interconnectedness of all of creation, if you like, and what does that mean, and why are we here, and what's it all about? And how does that relate to our everyday living? So that took me on the journey of exploring things like Buddhism, shamanism, reading up and understanding about a lot of the different religions. And that eventually brought me to the door of Tantra, which is what I do now.
And the Tantra world is all-consuming. As we know, I'm a mad pupil of Mel's as well. She's an incredible force to reckon with, especially when it comes to the massage and the yoga as well. So, I mean, you've been massaging women's bodies and men's bodies from a Tantra perspective for many, many years now. Tell us about the kind of 3 main blockages that you normally see in women's bodies, and the difference maybe between women's bodies and men's bodies when it comes to Tantra, spirituality, releasing energies, all that good stuff.
Kind of stuff. Okay. So if you want to kind of understand what Tantra is, it's a Sanskrit word, and it does not translate to the word sex, okay, although many people believe it does. It translates to the word matrix, and what Tantra really is about understanding how energy works in the universe. So this science was developed over 5,000 years ago, right? And they understood about quantum energy, electricity, magnetic energy, gravity. They understood all this 5,000 years ago. And they therefore understood very, very clearly the energetic structure of a human being, right? Which is beyond the physical realm of it. So in Tantra, one of the things you learn, which is more of a modern day practice, is Tantra massage, and how to work with the energies of the bodies to clear out all the stuff that we don't need to carry with us anymore, all the excess emotions, the traumas, the stress, everything, the pollutants that we take in from everyday life, because we live in a polluted society, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the stress of being online all the time and on computers, and having to work at the levels and paces that we have to work in modern day times. So what the modern day tantric masters realized is that most people just did not realize that they're an energetic being. They didn't even perceive that. They just thought they were a physical body and a mind, right? So this is the first main blockage for men in the nicest way possible. They kind of understand their physical body from 2 perspectives, working out in the gym, so to speak, and maybe lovemaking, but then there's a big disconnect to the mind and the rational mind, you know, and the emotional self is actually a very big problem for most men, and you perceive this in Tantra. Then we have the journey with women, which I'll come into in a second. So, and understanding that, just a few basics to understand before I explain what I'm going to explain. So we have many energetic layers to our body, and we have what are known as 7 chakras, which may sound very hippie to anybody that kind of thinks, oh, that's all that new age stuff, you know, 7 chakras, whatever. Actually, no, it's not hippie. It's very, very factual. If you work with Tantra and you work with energy, you will start to actually feel and perceive your chakras. They do exist, they're there, and you can perceive them and sense them. So we have these 7 chakras, and then we have 72,000 nadis, which are energy channels that run through the body. And then there's at least about 140 to 170 Mama points which have been identified. So if you know about Chinese medicine, it's not that different to Chinese medicine. They have all the meridians and they have the acupuncture points. So this is 2 ancient practices that separately came to these understandings back then. So with women, it's interesting because the 3 main blockages I find, and I just relate very quickly to why I came to Tantra. I had been not in a single businesswoman for many, many years. So I'd not been in a relationship with somebody for a long time. And then I've been running my own business for at least 16 years. And what I found in my journey as a woman in business, which is relevant because there's lots of us in the same place and lots of ladies in my age group or just a bit below and younger, or a bit above. When I started into business, women were not really very familiar in business, as in men were not used to having women around in business, let's just put it that way. So especially in Scotland as well, I came up here from down south, so I'm somewhere between Margaret and Hilary. I'm now what do you call an adopted Scot, because I've been here for over 20 years. That the attitude was very much that you were kind of a PA or a secretary. There was a lot of sexual harassment and sexual abuse that went on, a lot of bullying that went on in the companies that I worked in and I experienced. That's actually what led me to doing leadership and behavioural change for organisations. And so what I had actually perceived is that as I've gone through the journey then of being employed and having to protect myself against unwanted sexual advances in the workplace related to also my position and my success and my career, but then as a businesswoman having to make my voice heard and to be taken seriously before the last 10 years, where it's now much better, I found I was stepping into very strong masculine energy. I was mimicking men. And instead of having a nice skirt, I would have a trouser suit. I'd have very strong makeup, as almost like war paint. And I was entering this very forceful, very masculine energy, which relates to the third chakra, Manipura energy. And I was kind of aware that I wasn't really being able to engage in relationships very well. I didn't understand why, you know, was I being too judgmental of partners or people? And as I was exploring spirituality, I kind of knew there needed to be something more. And I very much felt that I was disconnected from my feminine energy. That even though I looked very feminine, that I was disconnected from that feminine energy. And this kind of leads me into the blockages. So I woke up one night, in fact 3 nights in a row, in full body orgasm, which may sound interesting, but I did. And that was kind of a sign to me from my body that it was lacking its attention to its femininity, you know. And actually for the woman, the orgasm is really, really, really important. It's the most powerful healing that you can experience as a woman. And that's because you have a flush of energy coming from the lower level of your body that rises up through all of the energy channels to the higher levels of your body. So it clears out any stress that you're carrying. And if a woman really, really has very strong orgasm, you'll find that she cries because she's releasing the stress and the agitation and frustration that she's carrying with her. Okay, so the 3 main blockages so this took me to Tantra. So this, I could talk, you know me, I can talk forever about everything, so I'm trying to keep focused. So this is what actually led me to Tantra. I typed in white, pure, spiritual Tantra because I didn't want all of this new age, you know, lots of lovers and loads of sexuality going on without proper, authentic spiritual teachings behind it. And up came the school that I studied with. And off I went to do my first course, which was Tantra Massage Therapist. I had no intention of becoming a therapist at that time. I was delighted to learn massage finally in my mid-30s because I'd always done a kind of a, you know, someone's asked you to massage and you do something that you've seen other people do, but you don't know what you're doing. And then after 5 minutes, you're like, okay, that's good, well done, you know. So it was wonderful to be able to actually learn to massage properly, but especially with this massage. And never did I think for a moment that it would lead me into becoming a teacher of Tantra yoga, meditation and massage. So the 3 main blocks that come up for women and that I perceived in myself, in my own journey, is the throat is a key area of blockage, the heart is another key area of blockage, and then the area around the sexual organs, right? I mean, in Tantra, we call the area of that the yoni, the vagina, the yoni, but the area around that and the lower stomach. And these are the 3 main blockages that I perceive in other women and I've had with myself. And how these manifest is in the lower areas, basically any stress or trauma that we perceive and have through our entire lifetime, from childhood to adulthood and all the way through, it gathers in that area because we are an energetic being, not just a physical being. And it gathers in the area of the vagina, of the yoni. So a lot of women can perceive numbness in that area, pain in that area, burning sensations in that area, difficulty to be lubricated in that area. So sorry if I'm going to quite raw levels, but
we're all women.
We're all ladies here. We're all ladies here. And so that impacts our ability to, like, this area is where our emotions are connected. So it goes around the second chakra, which is all about where our emotions are connected and how we function, and our sexuality. Now, sexuality is the seat of all creative energy. Let's think about it. A man and a woman come together, an egg and a sperm come together, this polarization creates boom, this organic matter becomes, this inorganic matter becomes organic life, and we create a child. So it's the most powerful, powerful energy we have there. You want to put it next to its nuclear energy, if you like, but created by us as human beings. And that's the seat of our creativity, not just in procreation, but in all creative endeavors, in story writing and copywriting and creating your social media strategy, in doing your flower arranging, whatever that is, that's your creative life, vital life force energy. So if this area starts to stagnate with all of our traumas and stresses, then we're blocking that creative life force, and we're blocking our ability to actually have sexual intimacy and pleasure as well, or actually harnessing that. So if you can't actually experience your orgasms, you can't clear out all this stress, and you can't heighten your levels of creativity and energy. I'll keep it simple because there's a lot further I could go into it in that. So that's one of the key areas, but it also affects our ability to relate to the opposite sex as well, and to be open to them, because if we have all these traumas, it's shutting down that area. And most of us, I'm sorry, but most of us are not properly educated on how to make love, because it's not just sex. Today, most guys learn about sex by watching porn. I can assure you, porn is not making love and true, wonderful sexual activity. It's not, right? And then women are not really educated unless they experience a good lover, right? Because what do we learn in schools? We learn about sex education in a very factual, biological way, and protecting ourselves from any issues, but we don't learn about it from intimacy and relationship. And one of the key things that we need to do is be able to surrender to our partners. And it requires trust and love and a whole journey of foreplay that's not just about touch. Okay.
So tell us about the comparison with the men's bodies then. I mean, they've got their own level of blockages going on as well, which can take, you know, a long time to massage them out and to do the yoga practice to get all those blockages out.
Well, yes, okay. I mean, going into the men's side of it, so the men have a very big disconnect between the physical body and the mental body. So the emotional body is normally, for a lot of men, quite suppressed. Yeah, and men trying to focus on the work to make their work their identity of what they do, and women have a danger of mimicking men in modern day times in that kind of play. It's not healthy for us to do that. It's not healthy for the men to behave like that anyway, but it's not healthy for us to mimic that either. So we're talking about the physical body. So we've got caught on the lower chakra. I was going to go up to the heart chakra and the throat chakra as well, but very briefly on the men, there is this big disconnect, and they need to be brought back into feeling themselves. So that's one of the key issues when you're working with men in the massage, is to actually get them to not focus, on what we call the lingam, but to actually focus, on their penis, but to actually focus on the whole body, to actually sense touch through the body, to realize that there's emotions acquainted to those touches. Now the skin is, so this also relates to the ladies as well, the skin is connected directly to the heart. So touch is really profound and absolutely required to open up the being and to be loving and to be tender and to be compassionate. So if you're not used to giving touch or receiving touch, and not just in one area of the body for intimate relationships, then this is also a lockdown on the heart. And one of the ways of opening up the heart and helping people to feel and perceive things again is through the sense of touch. So just the massage alone for a man is already a really, really powerful opening. And a lot of men who come to me for the massage will say, wow, this is a level of intimacy that I've been missing, because you're just focusing purely on the touch and sending a lot of loving energy into the touch. There's nothing sexual in it. I'm not trying to arouse them or anything like that. It's just a very powerful massage with the energy. But this leads into the sort of other blockage I was talking about with women that I perceived in myself very powerfully, which is with all the experiences that we've had So a lot of women have not had great experiences with men, right? So sadly, it's the case. You just have to look at the levels of abuse that go on in all different cases, that women have experienced not very good behavior from men at a high level. Some of us ladies have been very lucky and have met wonderful men, but in general, and going back in history even more so, we've kind of been there to breed with, or there for sexual favors, or there to serve. You know, we've only just developed our independence in the last 150 years or so. So we're carrying a psychological issue of that with us, right? Where there's a bit of a fear. Sorry, go on.
No, that's all right. Carry on. We're just running out of time here.
Okay.
We've got a minute left. So.
All right, 1 minute left, right? So I'll run now. So what we've done is, at a deep psychological level that's not necessarily conscious, we've been carrying that kind of fear around with us, and that leads to the blockages in the sexual area, as I've said, which is also kind of covering a tummy where we have fat around the tummy because that's a protective layer and a desire for comfort foods and sugars and that kind of thing. But we also build like a dungeon around our heart, and you tend to see a lot of ladies having their shoulders curved forward as if they're creating a protective area around the heart. Yeah, doesn't mean you're not generous, doesn't mean you're not kind, doesn't mean you're not tender, but it's like you're protecting the heart. There's a lot of hurt there, okay, from that experience. There's a lot of lack of trust, to trust somebody at a very deep level. So that's something else that I perceive, to trust people in business, to trust people around us. And for women, that affects us even more strongly than for men, because we want to be able to trust, we want to nurture, we want to collaborate, we want to be in a platform where we feel safe. It's very important for us as women to feel safe. And then that relates to the third chakra, the third blockage I was going to talk about, which is having our voice and finding our voice. And for most of us women, we don't have that. Even in lovemaking, women don't necessarily express themselves fully. And when I'm massaging with women, it's actually, there's a big blockage that happens here in finding our voice. And it kind of goes a little bit with the imposter syndrome, that, you know, we don't have enough self-belief in ourselves. Why are we here? Should we really be here? So it's actually finding our voice that's really important. So in the Tantra, we can work energetically with all of these blockages, both with the Hatha Yoga, with the meditations, and with the massage, and we can transform that energetically to open that up. So that's how that works.
That's a big science in a 15-minute summary, basically. There's a whole lot more you can learn from Miss Mel. Mel's got lots of yoga classes. In fact, you've got an online yoga series of classes coming up, haven't you?
We have indeed. We're about to do the foundation of Tantra Hatha Yoga live. It's an online series whilst people are in lockdown. So we went to do it live, so we're like, okay, we'll bring it as an online course. So that runs on a Wednesday and a Saturday evening. If you're interested in that, you can have a look at the website, which is alchemyofliving.co.uk. And we also offer, if people are interested in joining us, free daily online yoga just for practice. It's not all the teachings around it, it's not the principles, it's just a daily practice of Hatha Yoga, working with those energies, which again, you can find us on Facebook, Alchemy of Living, free online yoga.
So on that note, thank you so much, Mel. It's been wonderful to talk to you. And please stay online as we begin to talk to Miss Margaret Walsh. Come on down, Margaret. How are you doing? No, you're muted. Unmute your mic. Unmute your mic.
I am great. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Something else on the screen, but I succeeded. And there I am, the technology person.
Yeah, brilliant. So today we're going to be talking. I mean, Margaret. I have to tell everybody, Margaret is wears so many different hats in terms of business and business models and development, and on such a scale you will have no idea. But today, Margaret, we've managed to confine you into one of your hats, which is the Scottish Space Power Institute. And so your proposition for Scotland is that Scotland should operate as an honest broker in outer space disputes. So how does that actually work?
Well, Scotland, it's small enough country, ambitious enough, has wonderful people, very enthusiastic, technology savvy, people who care, and most importantly, has values. There are lots of values here, social values. And when we talk about space, when we talk about the final frontier that is not so final anymore, you need to have someone, you need to have a nation, and you need to have people that actually care about other people. Because if you don't have that care, then as I explain in a minute, a lot of things may go very wrong and very, very fast, even between the allies, even between the people who are so-called call themselves a friendly nations. But the competing differences and the competing interests, national interests, can bring quite bizarre consequences upon all of us.
So what is the issue? I mean, do people own bits of space? What's going on up there?
Well, the problem with space right now is that we feed from space, from satellites, basically everything that we need for our daily life. The world is interconnected by issues of cybersecurity, and we all know everything is hacked here and there. So imagine if we are being hacked here on the ground, terrestrially, then extraterrestrially, there is an entire new venue of that as well. Now, space activities are highly interconnected into economies, into critical infrastructure. The satellites themselves are critical infrastructures. Everything is self-dependent. So they are at risk. They are at risk of the friendlies. They are at risk of the non-friendlies. They are at risk of the crazies. And with it, we are at risk too, because...
So for example, give us an example of where we might find problems kicking off between people. What kind of conflicts might arise in outer space?
Can you imagine life without internet? Because if something goes wrong in a space, you don't have it. Internet is increasingly dependent, and it's feeding of space-enabled communications. Our internet services depends on it. So operation of satellite and space assets, it's very important, and that in turn relies on internet-based networks. So as you see the connectivity there. Now, GPS, production of goods, our machines, our services, production of medical equipment. Now we have coronavirus. Even that is controlled. Our financial services, everyone knows fintech, everyone does banking. We all have to do banking, yes? All kinds of devices, Internet of Things. Those are things that will expand, especially now after coronavirus. We are going to go into a period when all these technologies will explode upon us. Some may call it for bad or for worse. Some may call it good and blessing, but that's the point. They are there. Even our car production is somehow interconnected to satellites, although we have to change the cars and produce a little bit better versions of it. Government commercial technologies, they all are expanding. They all are transforming all activities in a process, and they are transforming our lives in a process. So what we have right now, we have all kinds of entrepreneurial ventures. Everybody read about space transport, space tourism. Everybody read about asteroid mining, all kinds of lunar operations, and everything. The tiny little satellites that Edinburgh is basically a capital of the world of that technology. Small sat, they are called. Small satellite networks. They are able to provide internet access and communications. They store data, and they are tiny. They are the size of a plate or of a cup. Can you imagine something like that somewhere there in a space, and so powerful? They drive our computing innovations. Again, they drive our electronics, miniaturization, our imaging, our sensors, all kinds of data, big data, small data, and artificial intelligence. And we are going to be even more and more surrounded by all these things. Now, also, like Mel said, we are observing space. We are observing space. We are doing everything to learn about space, but then we can also observe from the space. We can observe Earth. Why? To see how our agricultural production can, for example, happen. Now, this is so important, especially now. We know that we have a big problem in entire chain and entire supply chain. We have problems with farming. We don't have workers to go on our farms. So we have to know about our agricultural productivity, and we have to know about it with details. Our transportation efficiency, all feeding from there. Our environmental monitoring, that's the vital part. That's probably the most vital part. Now, all that is using cutting edge technologies. Cutting edge technology means that somebody out there would like to know what you have and basically borrow it or steal it outright and use it, or they also would like to harm you by it. And therefore you have cyber espionage, cyber crime, now relating not only to our little data, you know, who got the cat, who lives where, but to all our services coming from space. So this is a new challenge. We are looking at those challenges. And then we have countries that are constantly competing among each other, tensions upon tensions upon tensions. Quite recently, space was declared a war-fighting domain. Everybody were, oh, now we are in a new stage now. Some were laughing, but now nobody is laughing because everybody all of a sudden accepted that, yes, yeah, we are. Space is indeed our war-fighting domain. There are right now disputes going on, like between Germany and France, for example, about the satellite use, and we are friendly to each other, are we? So United Nations got involved. They have a committee on peaceful uses of outer space, and they came up with the guidelines for a long-term sustainability and space activities, and also guidelines on information security and all policies for terrestrial and orbital parts of the space system. So the recognition is that the space system, extraterrestrial, is in part connected and consists of the terrestrial parts of it, even though everything goes on orbit, but it's feeding off each other. Now, our political, our social and economic systems, our physical infrastructure, everything can be manipulated, everything can be hijacked. Now, the propaganda, misinformation, once you have hijacked links, you can do whatever you want and create wonderful fake news. So we created Scotland identity, and we want to create that identity around the objectives to work with international organizations and permanently establish Scotland as a global space diplomatic broker and negotiator. Just because we are so little, we are not threat to anybody else, but we see this. We see these problems as a nation. We see these problems, and we are a nation that is highly respected. Scots brought all the wonderful things to the world.
And you, Margaret, you're one of our new Scots, aren't you? You've been here for 4
I am
years now. Yeah.
I'm a French new, well, 3 years, almost 3 years here, quite by accident, but that was a wonderful journey, and I'm actually grateful to my son that he asked me to come here with him. Now he is staying here, looks like he wants to stay, doesn't want to go back to Canada, and I don't think I want to go back either. I made my home here and met wonderful people, have many ventures. It is like a new wind in the sails. It just gave me a new energy. And besides that, I just fell in love with Highlands, so now I can't leave.
And so normally you're based in Canada.
Yes, well, I am a citizen of the world, really. But yes, let's say I used to be based of Canada, but I was traveling due to my very unusual work activities in the past. I was traveling.
And when you were young, did you have an idea that you might be involved in some kind of space activity?
Oh my God, never, never. Oh, when I was young, I was going to an art school. I was the little princess. I wanted to be a diva. I wanted to be opera singer, and I was for some time until I got bored and decided that the other job is more exciting. Well, actually, more, well, feeding my brain in a different direction, and that's what I loved. But no, never, never, never. 5 years ago, I would say no. Although, when I was doing my PhD, when I was writing my PhD in 96 or something like that, I was writing about technology. I was writing about technology, but not in a sense of technology development, but in how to steal it or how not to allow somebody else to steal it. That's my specialty, risk assessment and other things. So, no, I never could envision, never.
Amazing. And so what would you say, because you've lived most of your life, you know, your professional life, you've worked in the surrounded by men. Mel was talking about the dynamics of living in a man's world, in the professional world. How have you found that experience? And do you find that your body, your energetic body, has become toxified as a result?
That's very interesting. Actually, it's so much, I can relate so much to what Mel was saying. It's amazing. And I can relate to it on a completely different level, not only as a woman, not only from the perspective of Tantra, but Tantra itself. One, I can say I have a Tantra brain, because everyone who knows me knows that I have a matrix brain. I do not perceive things as in a single lines or one dimension or 2 or 3 dimensions. I see them all interconnected. And this is actually the basis for my activities now. That's always what I was doing. When I was analyzing various operations, various things, I was always using that. And relation to men, oh my God, I worked 30 years of my life exclusively with men, exclusively, not a single woman inside. Although my mentor and the person who made me professionally who I am was a woman. A wonderful woman. And she always said, remember, you have to wear pants around men simply because you have good legs and they never think with their brain. And you need them to think. But at the same time, you should never forget that you are a woman, because that is the ultimate power within you, because you will understand and you will be able to think and recognize things that men cannot recognize, and do it before they even formulate a thought about recognizing it. That was wonderful, and it served me well my entire life. Furthermore, in my other avatar, as I call it, so in my other life, I was working with a systems that actually came from India. I did an entire presentation at some point about special services, secret service, and so on. Ashoka was the first boss of a secret service. So let's go to the world of the poem of Gilgamesh and to Sanskrit and everything else. But the system, the intelligence system, all the 3-letter organizations that we have in the Western world are based on Sanskrit, are based on India. And they have lots of Tantra in them. So I do not see anything wrong with thinking in a multi-dimensional way. Yeah, it has to be included. It has to be that way. This is the natural way. I will never perceive it any different.
And this is why Margaret is coming up with schemes and ideas and initiatives and projects and businesses that most people are still scrubbling around trying to find their pens and papers on. And she's pushing ahead and making things happen in a way that I find, guys, would be very difficult to anticipate. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how this develops, the Scottish Space Power Institute. Where can people find out more about you, Margaret?
www.globalinitiatives.co.uk. Everything about my company, I am on LinkedIn under MG Walsh, a faceless cube, which I adore, and it serves me well. And also quite recently, I opened up a Facebook account under Margaret G. Walsh. So I can be found there. Now I have to ask my son to make a page to it and everything else. And well, I have to catch up.
Oh, well, it's going to be a good journey anyway, that's for sure. Okay, on that note, thank you so much for everybody who's been here on the show. The guests next week are, again, outstanding. We've got Jin Lally, who's a professional psychotherapist, who's talking about why I'm a therapist that doesn't need to hear your problems. We also have Nikki Simpson, who's going to be talking about the underrepresentation of minorities in magazine publishing. And she's director of the Magazine Publishing Center. And we also have Julie Snell, who on the quiet, it will be announced on Monday, is the new chair of the Scotland's 5G Centre. And she's talking about why 5G is important and how fake news is damaging society. Okay, so we've also got a couple of other pieces of news. We've got on the Enterprise Nation website, you can find information about meet the buyer. If you're in a beauty industry or the wellness industry and you would like to be able to talk to Next or Boots about your product, then I would go and have a look at Enterprise Nation, sign up for the event on the 22nd of May, and then have an opportunity to pitch to Next and Boots your special wellness or makeup beauty kind of products as well. Also tomorrow, we've got the using creative tools for advanced content on your mobile. So this was the event that was supposed to have happened last Friday, but we had an absolute car crash of an experience. The Wi-Fi didn't work, the screen froze and everything. And so I ended up having to kind of wing it for a whole hour. So we're coming back and we're going to do that on Friday the 8th. That's tomorrow at 12:30 inside the She Means Business Scotland group. So come back for that live training and hopefully all will be well. But we're definitely going to make sure everybody's invited into the Zoom so we're not going to be prone to the Facebook kind of breakdowns that we've been having. And then finally, we've got two other events. We've got how to build a range of sales funnels on Instagram. That's going to be on Wednesday, the 27th of May in collaboration with the Edinburgh Chamber. That's a full day in-depth training on all issues to do with Instagram stories, Instagram ads, and everything like that. And then on Friday, the 5th of June, you've got advanced Facebook sales funnel. Again, that's with the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce, a full day of training on advanced Facebook sales funnels. Okay, so on that note, I'd like to thank you ever so much for having been with us for today's She Means Business Scotland show. And I'll see you same time. It's Thursday next week, but otherwise I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for my guests, Margaret Walsh, Melanie Harris of Alchemy of Living, and Hilary Phillips of Cygnus. Thank you so much for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.